All right, I have not read this at all. I'm gonna be a little quiet. My roommates are here, but whatever. So this is my completely blind reaction to the new patch. Hopefully, it's good changes. This patch is a little different than usual balance patches. It's more about the general design direction of the game than it is about particular power outliers, though we hit a few of those too. Right now, there are a lot of cards that can remove player agency and raise the power level of the game beyond where we want for a 4-set meta. Okay, yeah. We're looking for a variety of these meta-defining cards to patch from OTK styles, power for AoE to make feel like minions don't matter. Okay, that's a lot of reading. Reno Lone Ranger. Okay, whatever. It's now 9 mana. That is a good change for a lot of decks. For Wild, especially too, it makes it so that Reno Lone Ranger doesn't just lock you out as easily, especially for Shutterwalk Shaman, because you can't play it on curve. That was where Reno Lone Ranger was really the most toxic in Wild, wasn't Shutterwalk Shaman. You could play Reno and Shutter on curve, and your opponent just couldn't play the game for 2 turns at least. It was very, very toxic, very bad for the game. This is a lot better. It gives it a big slap on the wrist. It makes it a lot worse for a lot of decks, but like just something you can't really deal with. Virus module no longer has stealth, but it's a 1/4. Okay. Gaslight Gatekeeper costs 4 mana. That's kind of crazy. It went from 3 to 4. Snake Oil now costs 1. Okay. Wow. Wheel of Death is changed to start of your turn instead of end of your turn, so it doesn't work with Drakari Enchanter anymore. That's kind of nuts. It actually significantly nerfs that deck. It was kind of an okay deck. I think it was like tier 2. It was a lot better than people were expecting because no one thought it would work with Drakari. Now this card is as strong as people thought it would be on release. Terrible. Forge of Wills from 3 to 4 mana is a pretty big nerf for standard, of course, but this is a gigantic buff for Wild. There is a world where you play this in even Warlock. Don't get me wrong, it's probably not that common of a card because even though the card is 4 mana, it's still 4 mana. 4 mana might be too slow for this kind of card, even in even Warlock. That being said, if it does get played anywhere, it's going to be played in even Warlock now that it's 4 mana. Prison Horror nerf also affects uh, Questline Warlock. You have a lot of Questline Warlock decks that are running Prison Horror. This is a big nerf to those decks. -1/-1. It can't trade as efficiently anymore with Broom, and that's just a good change. Timewinder Zarimi goes from 5 dragons to 8 dragons. Thank God, dude. This means that Zarimi is not like an instant win the game button on turn 5 for Shadow Dragon Priest anymore, because they're almost always getting it on turn 5 or 6. And then, of course, it was just too strong at that point. And then it is now worse in like the regular Zarimi Priest because you have to play 8 dragons. 8 is actually kind of a lot. This is similar to Rich OG Time Warp, where Time Warp went from like 6 to 8, and it kind of slowed the deck down a lot. Now, the Zarimi Priest is significantly worse, and thank God. I prefer if they just made Zarimi like 10 mana and completely unplayable. I would have preferred that, but this is still a fine change as well. Threads of Despair goes from 1 to 2 mana. You might be thinking, oh, well, Threads of Despair isn't that great in Wild, right? Because no one played it. No, Threads of Despair was easily the best removal card ever printed. It's just Death Knight was so bad in Wild, there's no reason to play it. However, it's 2 mana now. There's a world where even Death Knight runs this card, and you play more of a control and, like, I don't even know, like, control even Death Knight, which is already what you kind of do, but you didn't play with Blood. You play with Triple and Holy, and you could do, like, buffs into, like, no munchers and things like that with this, and that would probably be good. There is a world where Threads of Despair does see play at 2 mana in even Death Knight. Sickly Grimewalker goes from 3 to 4 mana. This is not really that big for Wild. This card was already kind of niche in Wild with crop rotation, but it's now just not really good anymore. It's at 4 mana. There's just no point to ever play it anymore. Sanitize goes from 5 to 6 mana. That's kind of big. It came out at 4 mana, so like let that tell you how powerful this card was. Oops. Like, sorry. The original of this card was way too strong at 4. Then at 5 it was too strong for standard, and now it's at 6. Even more Even Warrior isn't a thing anymore, so you would never run this anyway. But it's just kind of sad to see a really interesting card like this die because of Odin, I guess. I mean, not really anything else you can say about it. Just sees no plan wild. Trial by Fire going from 6 to 7 mana is huge because now Even Warrior is just completely dead. In the past, you could still play Even Warrior and like it would be okay. It wouldn't be anything crazy because you would have to draw ETC to get Odin, but now you just cannot play the deck anymore because this was easily the best card in the entire deck, and you just can't do it anymore. This is a revert to the buff for Trial by Fire, so it's going to be about the same power level as it was when it first came out, but it is a little sad to see a card that's kind of interesting like this get nerfed rather than more boring cards. Oh, okay. Thogron now shuffles it into your opponent's deck, and it's still the same similar effect. Yeah, it makes it so you don't fuck up your Reno in Standard with Thogron anymore, and that's really nice. It makes the card fit thematically a lot more. There's kind of no reason for it to be in your deck. That made no sense. You never shuffled things into your own deck in Warrior anyway, so I don't really know why it was like that. But, I mean, of course, this doesn't change the card in Wild. Flash of Lightning to 3 mana. Thank the fucking Lord. Flash of Lightning is incredibly toxic for the game. It killed Sphere of the Frog because Blizzard rather nerfed Sphere of the Frog than Flash of Lightning, and now Flash of Lightning is paying the price. 3 mana also nerfs Nature Shaman in Standard a lot. Crash of Thunder going to 6 mana is the same kind of thing. It just slows down Nature Shaman in Standard, which is what needed to be done. The deck was winning on like turn 5 in Standard, which shouldn't really happen for no tempo OTK decks. Should not be winning that early in Standard. Of course, in Wild, this doesn't really change much of anything because Frog is going to be playing more than 5-6 spells in a turn anyway. Jungle Gym goes to 2 durability. Woo! Yeah, Beast Hunter was already really terrible and like had fallen off significantly since the last expansion, and Jungle Gym getting hit does not help. I'm actually in the camp that Jungle Gym was not a good card in Beast Hunter, don't get me wrong, but now there's just no experimentation with the card in that deck. I think this is kind of sad to see a card that could have been okay, just no chance of being playable anymore. And then we get to Time Warp. Ooh yeah! Time Warp goes to once per game. Thank the Lord. This still leaves the possibilities that there will be some OTKs with Time Warp, but no longer the infinite Renethal Reno Raw Math bullshit. So now you actually have to build your Time Warp as an OTK deck, which is what the card should have been in the first place. Similar to Zarimi, it's trying to OTK your opponent. Zarimi was just way too efficient at it because, obviously, now once per game you can't do Raw Math shenanigans. You have to probably set up like Flame Waker or Giants again. You used to run Giants in Mage because that would kill your opponent, but now we have this. Gloop goes to refresh a mana crystal. Thank God, bro. This now makes it so Reno Druid is still about the same power level, and like all these slower Druid decks are about the same power level, don't get me wrong, but this now makes it so that Fruit Druid, the Auctioneer Druid, isn't a deck anymore. Thank God. This was way too strong. You would just kill your opponent on turn 5 every game that you played it. You would have to brick immensely to not win. And it was just way too good. There was no counterplay because it was Barnes that would get pulled, not Auctioneer. So what do? You can't snipe Barnes. You can't bees Barnes. You can't explosive ruins Barnes. Yeah, I guess you could object it, but like. And then if you tried to rat it, you would rat Barnes. You wouldn't rat Auctioneer, and then they have 2 Auctioneers in their deck that they could just draw towards and wait. It was very, very toxic, and now it's not a deck anymore. Regular Togwaggle Auctioneer Druid probably still exists, but that deck was a lot worse than the Fruit one. Snowfall Graveyard goes to 5 mana. Oh, sorry. Those are buffs. Snowfall Graveyard is going to go to 5 mana. Thank the Lord. Because it was so stupid in Mind Rogue. Mind Rogue still could exist, to be honest with you, but it'll probably be pushed back to turn like 6 or 7 rather than turn like 4 or 5, which is again an issue. A combo deck should not be killing you on 4 or 5 with no counterplay. The only way you could play around Mind Rogue was to destroy the weapon, and you couldn't do that because Zephyrus AI sucks, and he almost never gives you weapon removal. And then you would just take 32, 40, 32, 48, 64 damage, and so you couldn't out armor it depending on their how many like triggers they have. So this is a great change, great nerf. It makes decks so much worse. Now these are buffs. Manufacturing error goes to 5 mana. Wait. Oh, wait. If your deck had no duplicates at the start of the game. I don't like it. I don't like start of game no duplicates. I think that just makes it so shuffle effects no longer counter Reno decks, which why the fuck is that the point? Why would you do that? That is really stupid. I think that they should have like tried to word it better so that it fits plagues being in standard and shuffling being in standard. And it makes the cards have less counterplay in wild now because they can't be turned off by shuffling. Of course, it would only be Reno Lone Ranger because the other ones are fucking terrible. But I mean, I also Dr. Holiday is the only one that sees play in wild. So that's not a good change in my opinion, but whatever, I guess. Manufacturing error. It goes from 6 mana to 5. 5, yeah. And then this card was already unplayable in wild. I don't think this changes it at all. Yes, it's now technically negative 4 mana if you hit 3 spells, but like, yeah. Are you going to do that? Not really. Sunset Volley goes from 10 to 9 mana. This does not affect wild in the slightest. The card would only have seen play in something like Dragon Caller, where you're making it cost 0 anyway, so this literally does nothing. Mezzadune going from 6 to 5 is a little significant for Mage because it makes it so you can play the Vexilus combo a little faster, but the thing is that they just nerfed Time Warp, so this doesn't actually do anything. This would have been a nice change before for like Questmage, but now, or I guess you could still do the Vexilus with this, split it up, or your Zephyrus, but it's just a lot worse than it would have been previously. There's Mage just has no real compensation buffs for this patch, so Mage is going to be unplayable in Wild, which is not good. I think they should have tried to buff something for Mage, maybe like Even Mage, put Wildfire back at 2 mana, and Even Mage's already a playable deck. And they just didn't do it. Kind of upsetting, but Blizzard doesn't actually give that much of a fuck. Woodland Wonders. You now summon 2/5 beetles. That's actually kind of significant. This card was already kind of okay in like a spell damage druid, but now it's like so much better. 2/5s for 2 mana, or like that is crazy good. I'm not sure like if a spell damage druid will be good again, but if we ever see spell damage druid pop up, this card's gonna be really annoying to deal with. Zoc goes from 7 to 6 mana. There is a world where you can play this in even druid now, but it's probably not likely. It would be fun, don't get me wrong, but this card probably changes nothing. Chia Drake goes from 2/4 to 3/5, doesn't do anything. Hagatha the Fabled goes from 5 mana to 4 mana. That might be significant. That might be just good enough now to run like 5 mana spells. Because it still draws you 2 in Shaman, which has pretty bad card draw. Like, it's okay at best. So this might be playable in Shutterwalk Shaman. You would have to change around the deck a little bit, try and fit 5 mana spells. And that's the case. It probably won't, but this is definitely a card to look out for on your radar as being somewhat playable event. Aftershocks went from 5 mana, deal 1, which was the nerf, cost 2 less, to being 4 mana, deal 1, cost 1 less. So it's still the same mana cost at 3, but its initial cost is a little lower, and you can run it in Even Warrior again. But again, Even Warrior is kind of not playable, especially after it just lost Trial by Fire. Spot Face is 3-9 to 4-12. Again, not really impactful for Wild, but it was fucking crazy that a 9-mana minion was a 3-9. Like, who fucking designed that? Toy Ranosaur is a 7-7 that deals 7. This is actually a big buff. Don't get me wrong, I don't think this card is playable in Wild, but like if we ever got like more support for this card, it would probably be pretty decent. 7 damage is a lot, especially because it has a good body. It's not really useful in Wild anyway, but you know. Shoplifter Goldbeard goes from 6 to 5 mana. Same as always, this is not that useful for Wild, but it's kind of a cool change because now you can play a lot slower, slower pirate decks, and Goldbeard is at least interesting. Does Goldbeard go from like a bad card to a good card? No, but it goes from a bad card to a fun card. At 6 mana, it was just too slow to be fun. But now at 5, you can do some really funny stuff with it. Crystal Cove went from 4-4 to 5-5. Thematically, this should have been what it was in the first place, but I don't know why they didn't do that. This card, probably isn't that great in Wild. It's now 3 mana plus 4/4 instead of 3 mana plus 3/3 at best, which is okay. Don't get me wrong. It's now better than Blessing of Kings, but Rogue wouldn't really use a card like this in Wild anyway. It's too slow. It doesn't fit in most Rogue decks, but it's still cool. I still like when changes like this happen. Crane Game goes from 9 to 8 mana. Again, in Wild, this means literally nothing because you're playing Crane Game with Blood Bloom. Yeah, you could say that, like, oh, you take 1 less damage, but no. Yeah, the only way you were playing Crane Game was Blood Bloom anyway, so this is a nothing change. Fly Off the Shelves goes from 4 to 3 mana. This is actually a pretty big buff to a card. Deal 1 damage to all enemies, repeat for each dragon you're holding. 3 mana, deal 2 to all enemies is already a good card. So if you have 3-4 dragons, this is actually a really good card now. There's a world where you play like slower, combo Dragon Priest, and this slots in the deck very well. I actually would expect to see this card see some play after the change. Papercraft. Oh my! Papercraft Angel is now 2 mana 2/3 from 3 mana 2/5. That is so big. This is an insane change. There's no reason to not run Papercraft Angel in basically every single Shadow deck now. Some people weren't running it in Shadow Priest, but now there's no reason not to because it's 2 mana 2/3 deal 2 continually as long as it lives. Sorry. And this is like such a big buff for Reno Priest. It's insane. This is actually a buff to Even Priest, dude. Now Even Priest is playable. You can get some really crazy heal action off with this and turn it into damage. This is actually genuinely good. I'll be posting an Even Priest video very soon. You'll see that. Oh my lord. Treasure Distributor. After you summon a pirate, give it and this minion +1 attack. This is insanely broken. This card was already kind of okay in Pirate Rogue. It wasn't actually that great. Pirate Rogue wasn't really... It was fine. It was like an okay addition. It made the deck a little bit stronger, but Pirate Rogue wasn't really that great, to be honest with you. But this is fucking disgusting now. Now on your turn 1, instead of summoning a 1/2, a 2/1, and a 3/2, you can summon a 3/2, a 2/1, and a 3/2. What the hell are they thinking with this card? This is so broken. Whizbang changes, I guess. So that's all that we have for this patch. Overall, I think it makes Wild a little bit more interesting. I would much rather we got some more changes, don't get me wrong, but these 3 cards being killed is good enough, I would say. And then we got some interesting new toys with Fly Off the Shelves, Papercraft Angel, and Treasure Distributor. I don't think that Pirate Rogue instantly goes from like, I think it was like tier 3 or tier 2 to like the best deck in the game, but this is a big buff to it, so watch out for Pirate Rogue, and watch out for Reno and Shadow Priest regular. Not with Zarimi. I doubt you're going to play Zarimi Shadow Priest anymore, but this is definitely a big buff to those decks. And then a regular Zarimi Priest probably likes this as well. If you enjoy, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, tell me what you think below. This is a gigantic patch, and I think it's good for the direction of Wild. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.